My name is Bob and welcome to the Homestead, y'all. Well, our monster tomato plants have been in the ground a month. Well, really a month and a day. It's the 27th of June. So they've had one day over 4 weeks of growing. They're doing well, especially the Sweet 100s. The Cert Rolos aren't doing quite as well. This is the first year I've ever grown them, so I'm trying to figure out how much water they need compared to like the Sweet 100s. I have watered these one time. But before we get into doing what we're going to do today, let's look back and see what we did 2 weeks ago when the plants have been in the ground just 2 weeks. Okay, it's time to do a little work on our tomato plants. They've been in the ground from May 26th, today is the 12th of June, so what, 16 days, almost a little over 2 weeks. I haven't really done anything to these. I did water them one time last week. You can see I still have the hose laying here. I gave them a good soaking. Each plant probably got about 5-6 gallons of water. And then I haven't done anything else. But it's been hot here. We haven't had any rain. I think since I planted these, we had one rain and we got 0.12 of an inch. And that was a week before last, shortly after I planted them. So what we're going to do today is we have a razor knife. I've got a little spray bottle with alcohol to clean the knife in between each one. We're going to go in here, we're going to cut a few suckers off, and we're going to cut all the leaves off the bottom 18 inches, almost to 2 feet. That is critical for keeping bacteria off your plants. If you want to grow big, huge tomato plants and you want them to last till first frost without getting the blight, this is one of the most important steps, is cutting these bottom leaves off. So I'll get the camera, we'll zoom in closer, and I'll show you how I do it. Okay, I have a plastic bag here for any diseased leaves. I'm going to spray my gloves real quick. And this is just pure alcohol that I keep in a spray bottle. And then I'm going to spray the knife. Now, if you got a little rust on your knife, it's not that big a deal. I haven't found that it hurts them any. If you know anything different, then please let me know. But what we want to do is we want to go in here and we want to cut this as close to the main stem as possible. And then you want to inspect every leaf. Now that leaf looks good, so I'm going to set him aside. He's going to go in our composter. Now I'm going to have to come way up here. There's a sucker up here I want to cut. Get him off there. Now I'm going to stick him in some water and go ahead and root him. The leaves look all good on this one. I don't see any issues with anything. So I'm going to go ahead and start him. I'll come up here and cut this leaf. And I'm going to take all the leaves off in the first 18 inches to 2 feet. Now that this plant's about 3 foot tall, I can come in here and do that and make sure that no leaves are in the bottom 18 inches of it. Now the reason that is because when it rains and rain hits your soil, it splatters up bacteria onto your leaves. And that's where you start to get your disease from. That bacteria sits there overnight and starts to grow. Now this one's had something on it. You can see a bug of some kind has ate that leaf, so he's still alright. It's not any kind of disease. Like I said, I want to cut the rest of these off, and I look at each one of them. Now, if they have disease on them, they go in the plastic bag, get put in the garbage, and they get thrown away. We don't want them on the homestead at all. Anywhere to get in our main garden. Now, this one has some kind of eggs on it. On the back side of them, I'll look them up. I'm going to go ahead and stick that one in the plastic bag until I get a chance to look those eggs up and see if that's a beneficial insect or a harmful insect. Okay, well that has quite a bit of the leaves cut back. You can see that's probably about, I'd say it's about 18 inches to the first leaf. So I'm going to leave that just like it is for now. We already have small tomatoes. This is a Sweet 100. You can see there's some tomatoes here. So this plant's doing well. It's growing great. The Sweet 100s just grow so fast. It's amazing in the soil. how fast they do grow. I'm not going to cut any of the other suckers off. I'm going to leave a couple more grow because I want to put them in water and start me some more Sweet 100 plants to put in the main garden. Okay, so that has that plant done. So what we want to do is we want to spray our knife again. And we're going to spray our gloves again with pure alcohol. So that way if there's any disease on this tomato plant, we don't transfer it to the next one. Okay, this is another Sweet 100 and you can see it's just doing wonderful. It's doing great. So I want to keep it that way. So I'm going to come in here and we're going to cut a whole lot of leaves. We're going to cut everything off the bottom here. Get as close to the plant as we can get. Follow that leaf back up to the top. Okay, here's some more spots on another one. And I can tell you what that is. That is bacteria. Right there. So all these leaves are going to go in the plastic bag. Just in case that's spread further up the plant. In fact, I'm not going to touch any leaves with my gloves that I'm not taking off. Now, tomato plants respond well to pruning. Anytime you prune any plant, it thinks it's being attacked by bugs, so it sends out a chemical hormone to heal itself and to protect itself. So that is actually good for the plant. There's been studies that say even if you touch them, it does the same thing, just touching the plant. So okay, that has pretty much everything on the bottom 18 inches to 2 feet cut off. Like I said, I'm not touching anything with my gloves that I'm not cutting off. Alright, 3 down, 1 to go. Plastic bag here. Put all these cuttings in it. Probably shouldn't even threw that down on the ground, those leaves. Should have put them straight in the bag. Alright, for some reason my camera shut off. As you can see, we've trimmed this one up. And we have all the leaves off the bottom 18 inches or so of the plant. So that's all we're going to do for this 2 weeks, and we'll see you at the 1 month update. Alright, so that's what we did 2 weeks ago. Today what we're going to do is we're going to come in here, we're going to trim some more leaves off. We're going to get the bottom 2 feet, we're going to move it up a little bit. We're at about 18 inches now. I like to have the bottom 2 feet of the tomato plants leaf free. So we'll go ahead and trim them off. The only other thing we've done besides what we just showed you, every day I just come in here and I move the tomato plants in, get them inside the cage where they grow out, just so I make sure that they grow well inside the cage. But today all we're going to do is go through and trim the bottom leaves. I'll move the camera closer so that way you can see exactly how we do it. Plus I'm going to take a few of these bigger leaves off. Not many of them. I'm just going to take a few because they're getting awful crowded in there. But they still need those leaves to help cool off the plant. You know, when we have hot weather like we've had so far this spring, we've already been in the 90s, and that's just unheard of for early June for us. We've been through a drought already. We went 3 weeks without rain. Luckily, just a few days ago, we got about an inch of rain. So that's helped out a whole lot. But hopefully we'll get rain at least once a week for the rest of the summer, and these plants ought to do very well. They're already growing well. There's tons of blooms on them. I'll take the camera and I'll record a little bit to show you some of the blooms and some of the tomatoes that are already on them. We have some tomatoes on this back one here that are going to be ready probably in just a few more days, and they're doing Okay, now that they're quiet. But we already have tomatoes on them, which is great. We have one tomato back here on the cert rollas, and multiple tomatoes on the sweet 100s already. So I'll grab the camera, we'll get a little closer, and we'll get to work. Okay, before we get started, first thing I want to do is do a quick measurement here, just to show you how much they've grown in the last 4 weeks. That plant is at 54 inches. Let's see what this one is. This one's at 54 inches. This one's at 48 inches. And that one's only at 40 inches. So you can see there's a little bit of difference. Of course, the sweet 100s are just beasts. They just grow great. Usually we grow the Amish paste with them, and they're quick growers also. They send roots deep into the soil real fast. But these new varieties not growing quite as quick as the other ones, but I still think they're going to make great tomato plants. So let me move the camera closer, we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll trim some more of these leaves off. Okay, the first thing we're going to do, of course, is spray our knife with alcohol. That way we don't have to worry about it. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to cut just a few of these bigger leaves. Not many of them, but some of these lower ones I want to go ahead and take off. I'm going to take off a couple of these little suckers. I don't cut all the suckers off because suckers will still produce tomatoes. So I leave some of those on there. And like I said, I'll take some of these bigger leaves. I don't see any kind of disease on here. There's no brown spots. There is tomatoes on here, and there's a few leaves that have grown on the bottom in the last couple weeks. So we're going to just come in here. We're going to take these off. That way we don't have to worry about blight or any other kind of disease splashing up on them from the ground. Now, since these are good, clean leaves, I'll go ahead and put these in our composter and compost those down. Of course, if they had any kind of disease on them, I'd put them in a plastic bag and I would dispose of them. I don't want to put diseased leaves in our compost. Meow. Okay. That's got most of them cut back. Go ahead and take this one off. And I'll show you some of these tomatoes here in just a second also. Poke some of these back up in here. I've got one that got out on me, and I'm gonna have to let it grow a little taller and push it back in there inside the cage. That looks pretty good. You can see the bottom roughly 2 feet. We've got most of the leaves off of it. Like I said, I'll bring the camera a little closer and show you some of the tomatoes already on it. That's all we're going to do to that one, at least for the next 2 weeks. Alright, you can see some of the tomatoes already on it, and some down there. Got some more started right over there, and all kinds of blooms all the way up. See all the different blooms on it. So it's loaded. Let me go ahead and show you this one. All the blooms on it. Blooms there. And of course, tomatoes there. The camera will focus in. Tomatoes up in there. So for the first 4 weeks, it already has tons of blooms and tons of tomatoes on it. This is the cert rollas. There's tomatoes in there. More blooms. So it has blooms all over it also. So it's doing good. Now we'll just come back and cut the rest of these bottom leaves off on these other 3 plants. Okay, let's trim this one up a little. We'll prune a few of these bigger leaves. Get a few of them out of here just to help the plants bloom. Give us a little more room. And we're going to take all the leaves off the bottom 2 feet of the plant. There's a couple of them here that right in the way of these blooms, so we want tomatoes, not tomato plants. So we'll cut those out of the way. We're going to come in here again, cut all these bottom leaves off. And this one too, there isn't any disease on here. I'm not seeing any brown spots, which is always a good sign. So all these can go in the composter. I do want to cut all these leaves back. I don't want any of them even close to the ground. Alright. Looking pretty good. And like I said, some of these bigger leaves, I'm just going to go ahead and take off here. Just because they are too big. And they're getting in the way. Especially if they're right over top of a bloom, set of blooms. I like to take them off, and that way they won't mess with the blooms any. And the pollinators can get in there good to them. Okay. That looks pretty good. That'll be good for another couple weeks. I do see one on the other side I want to get. Alright, I like the way that looks. So that's got all our plants cut back, has them cut back to 2 feet from the ground. They're doing great. I really don't see any problem with them right now, but we'll do another update in a month, and of course I'll show you exactly what I do for the next month to these. I probably won't do much. I may have to water them depending on how much rain we get, but they're just doing their thing. They're growing, they're producing tomatoes. There's tomatoes everywhere on this plant, blooms everywhere. So I'm just going to let them grow. Like I said, I'll do another update next month. If you have any questions or comments on how we grow these monster tomato plants, please leave it below. And as always, thanks for watching.